This video was brought to you by Brilliant. Sunday saw two critical elections in eastern German states, Thuringia and Saxony. The highly anticipated results are a significant moment in German politics, as they mark the first time that a far-right party has won a major election in Germany in the post-World War II era, with Alternative for Germany, or AfD, winning big in Thuringia and coming a close second in Saxony. So in this video, we're going to take a look at the results, explain why the party is thriving in Eastern Germany, why it's unlikely to enter either state government, and why the results are really bad news for the German government. Before we start, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing and ringing the bell to stay in the loop and be notified when we release new videos. Before we get into the results though, we're going to start with a bit of context. Germany uses a federal system of governance, meaning that it has a national government in Berlin, which is responsible for matters like defense, foreign policy, and citizenship. And then it has 16 internal states, or Bundesländer, which each have their own state parliaments and state governments, led by a minister-president. These states are responsible for issues like education, health, residency rights, policing, culture, and local planning. The last elections in both Thuringia and Saxony were held in 2019. In Thuringia, the incumbent state government is a coalition led by the Left Party, with the Social Democrats and Greens as junior partners. While in Saxony, the SPD and Greens are junior partners in a Christian Democrat Union, or CDU-led coalition. The two states' lost elections held back in 2019 also went well for the AfD. Nonetheless, because of the Brandmauer, or firewall, that Germany's mainstream parties have built around the AfD, the far-right party is in opposition in both states. So it's from this position that they went into Sunday's elections. The other thing you should know before we get into the results is that Sunday's elections were the first state elections held featuring the Sarah Wagenknecht Alliance, or the BSW, a new upstart party founded and led by Sarah Wagenknecht, who split from the Left Party, which she was once co-chair of. Now, BSW isn't easy to place on the ideological spectrum, because while Wagenknecht is a proponent of left-wing economic policies, she's also pretty socially conservative, with a hardline approach to immigration and an opposition to green policies, while also opposing German military aid to Ukraine and sanctions on Russia. Anyway, let's take a look at the results, which are just projections at the time of writing. Let's start with Thuringia, where the AfD surged some 10 percentage points to first place, with 33% of the vote, the party's first ever state election victory. In second place was the CDU, on around 24%, up a couple of points. Sarah Wagenknecht's BSW came an impressive third place, with more than 15% of the vote, overtaking the state's governing Left Party, which collapsed from more than 30% down to 13%, a dire result from the formerly powerful party. And as for the three parties in the federal coalition, it was certainly a bad night, with the SPD ending up on 6%, while the Greens and FPD fell below the 5% threshold to qualify for seats. Despite the AfD's win in Thuringia, however, the mainstream party's rejection of them means that it's likely that the second-place CDU will form the state's government, as its leader said that it would approach the SPD and was open to working with the BSW to form a, quote, sensible government. Wagenknecht has also said that she hopes that her party will be able to form a government with the CDU and probably the SPD, rejecting the idea of working with the AfD. Meanwhile, in Saxony, the race for first place was a lot closer. The CDU managed to retain their first place with nearly 32% of the vote, while the AfD came a closer second than last time with just under 31%. Everyone else, though, was a lot further behind. The BSW landed on 12%, the SPD on 7.3%, the Greens fell by more than 3 points to 5%, and the Left lost half their vote share and fell below the 5% threshold. These results mean that the CDU will likely continue to lead the state government, but will need to work something out with the remaining parties, including the BSW, the SPD, and the Greens. And the CDU's Saxony leader even admitted that it won't be easy. So, both states are looking at some potentially pretty ideologically mixed up governments. While the AfD likely won't enter either state's government, it's still a big political moment for the far-right party, So, why has the AfD managed to do so well here? Well, during the 5 years between Sunday's elections and the last ones in 2019, the AfD continued to capitalise on and foster anti-migrant sentiment that had previously helped it gain strength in the wake of European migration crisis in the mid-2010s. The past 5 years have also provided the AfD with ample opportunities to grow, with the economic shocks and turmoil that resulted from the COVID pandemic and the invasion of Ukraine drawing voters towards the Populist Party. Against the backdrop of a fall in living standards and a fractious, unpopular national coalition government, the AfD have been a vocal opponent of Germany's support for Ukraine and sanctioning of Russia, who Germany had previously relied on for much of its energy. And the party also tried to leverage an anti-renewable and anti-green policy mood in Germany to its advantage. The debates over asylum, integration, and deportation became even more prominent in the week before the Thuringia and Saxony elections, following a mass stabbing that killed 3 people, carried out by a suspect that authorities say was a failed asylum seeker from Syria. Now, Thuringia and Saxony are in eastern Germany, and Germany's eastern states, i.e. the ones that were previously part of the German Democratic Republic, or East Germany, have been fertile ground for the AfD and indeed other populist parties for a number of reasons. Not least because eastern states continue to lag behind Western Germany on many key economic metrics. The eastern states are also on average older, depopulating, and report greater dissatisfaction with democracy. Germany's mainstream parties also have much shallower roots in the eastern states than they do in the western ones, so the region's voters are perhaps more readily willing to back newer populist parties. As an aside, it's worth quickly mentioning that the AfD's chapters in Saxony and Thuringia are considered to be more extreme than the AfD's federal party. For example, Germany's Domestic Intelligence Agency, the Federal Office for the Protection of the Constitution, has classified both state chapters as confirmed right-wing extremists. The leader of the AfD's Thuringian chapter, Björn Höcke, the man that they would make minister-president, is particularly notable. He's twice this year been convicted for using prohibited Nazi slogans, and when in 2020 the head of Germany's intelligence agency asked if Höcke was a right-wing extremist, he said, Björn Höcke is the right-wing extremist. So the success of the AfD in Thuringia and Saxony is a major political moment, as it's the first time the party will have won a state election, and will likely elevate the more radical wing of the AfD even further. Even if the party is kept out of state governments, it will likely try and paint these maneuvers as undemocratic for its own benefit. On top of this, the elections couldn't really have been any more dramatic. 2 Eastern German AfD strongholds holding state elections on the same day, with Brandenburg, another East German state where the AfD is leading in the polls, holding its own election later this month. All of this, and the fact that the next federal election is just a year away, will only add to the febrile political atmosphere in Germany. It's also another ominous sign for the 3 federal coalition parties, the SPD, Greens and FDP, as they continue to struggle with public discontent and fail to check the rise of the AfD, and now have to deal with a new challenge from the BSW, and all the while the CDU looks increasingly like the head of a government in waiting. Understanding these sorts of issues is really important, but also difficult, and that's why TLDR is here to help you. Unfortunately though, the world's only getting more complex, especially when it comes to things like tech and AI, and I'm not qualified to teach you about that. But luckily, Brilliant are. Brilliant is where you learn by doing, with thousands of interactive lessons in maths, data analysis, programming, and AI. In fact, Brilliant is the learning platform designed to be uniquely effective. Their first principles approach helps you to build understanding from the ground up. Each lesson is filled with hands-on problem solving that lets you play with concepts, a method proven to be 6 times more effective than watching lecture videos. For instance, if you did want to learn more about the increasingly important world of tech, then you might want to check out their How Technology Works courses. They run you through everything from how computer memory works to how exactly a GPS can pinpoint your location, or why some online videos buffer, and how compression enables modern streaming. And although I did throw myself under the bus earlier, and I'm not qualified to teach you about that, I do have a computer science degree, and I can tell you that these courses aren't just high quality, they're also far more interesting than the lectures I sat through. To try everything Brilliant has to offer for free for a full 30 days, visit brilliant.org/TLDR or click the link in the description. That way you'll get 20% off an annual premium subscription and they'll know you came from us.